there are some times where you take the time to make a plan and a schedule and you have a good idea of how everything's going to work together, it's going to go smoothly, but then something goes wrong and you have to throw all of it out the window. What do you do in that circumstance? Let's talk about it. Homegrown filmmakers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Annie Pulling Sweat and I have been teaching myself filmmaking for several years now, and I've been sharing what I've been learning so that we can all be learning together. So I was recently on a project where the crew that I was on was working for a client. We had a plan, we had a really good idea of what the client wanted, we had it all scheduled out. It was going to be a pretty easy day. We get to set and discover that there had been a long stream of miscommunication somewhere, and the client wanted us to do something completely different than what we were prepared to do. But the show must go on. So the whole crew set about scrambling to come up with a new plan on the fly to try to do what the client wanted. The point of this being that when you have to throw everything out the window and you're flying by the seat of your pants, having a good sense of scene structure and what coverage you're gonna need will save you a lot of time and stress. It gives you a solid base to work from, and so that you actually get all the footage that you need, which will save your butt when you get to editing. Coverage is the amount of camera footage and angles that you get to capture a scene. If someone asks you if you got enough coverage, they're asking you if you have everything you need to edit the scene together. And if you get to editing and you don't have enough footage to actually tell your story, that means that you didn't shoot enough coverage. Coverage gives you control in editing. The idea is to have more than enough footage to tell your story so that you have the ability to actually make choices about how you're going to tell your story, rather than being stuck with one poor option because that's the only thing that you shot. So there's a balance to getting enough coverage on your shoot days. On the one hand, you want to get as much footage as possible, but on the other hand, you want to be as efficient with your time as possible. This is why Shotlisting is such a great tool. It helps you think through the coverage beforehand so you can decide exactly what coverage you're going to need, and you won't waste time getting footage that you just won't use. If you've studied writing, then you've probably heard the phrase before, every scene should have an arc. Well, this is true of cinematography as well. There is a fundamental arc of shots that make up every single scene, and it goes like this.
Hey, you ready?
I wish Mom and Dad were here.
Me too.
First, there is a wide shot to establish geography. This one shot tells us where the scene is taking place, which characters are in the scene, and where the characters are in relation to each other and to the environment. Starting out with this shot helps you to avoid confusion later because you've established where everything is placed. In a lot of scenes, this is actually the only time that you would use a wide shot. The other times that you would use a wide shot are when there is a change in the geography. So a character moves around or another character enters the scene. Next, there is a medium shot, and these are your everyman, all-around coverage shots that make up the bulk of your scene. You'll want to get a medium shot of every character in the scene, all the way through the scene, capturing dialogue and reactions. If a character moves, then you'll want to adjust your frame to follow, or you'll want to set up another medium shot to capture the rest of the scene. As the scene progresses and things get more intense, you're going to want to cut to a close-up. Close-up denotes intensity and importance. So if there is a line or an action that is significant and important to the story, then you're going to want to get a close-up of that. If there are any props in the scene that are important to the story, then you're going to want to get a close-up of that. It's called an insert, and that's just there so you can cut away to it and make sure that you actually get good footage of it. Are you guys tracking with me so far? We've got wide, we got some mediums, we got some close-ups. Now, depending on what the end of your scene is, you can finish with a close-up or a wide. Finishing with a wide is more final. We've come all the way back to where we've started and everything is wrapped up. Ending with a close-up suggests that whatever the scene is about has not been resolved, and it transitions into the next scene carrying that same thought over. So there is your arc. You've got a wide to establish, you've got mediums of the characters, and you've got close-ups of the important stuff. This arc is the paint by numbers of cinematography. It's the basics of scene structure, and it's a great place to start if you are just at the beginning of learning cinematography. Getting more creative with your shot choices and putting a whole sequence together is moving beyond that paint by number structure and actually moving into making your own art. That's when you can really start to dig into shot listing, starting with this scene arc as your base and changing it and polishing it to become more. Even when building past this basic structure into more interesting cinematography and more intricate shots, you still want to hit all of those points in your scene. Establish, move into your characters, and get close to the important stuff. That goes for dialogue scenes, that goes for action scenes, that goes for every scene. And in general, that's the order that you want to shoot these shots in as well. Start with the wide, establish all of your blocking for the whole scene, move in with your mediums to get the characters, and then finish up with the close-ups. But back to when we had to throw everything out the window and fly by the seat of our pants. When we realized that there had been some massive miscommunications and we had to do something completely different, we didn't have time to sit down and write a shot list or plan out our coverage to make sure that we got everything that we needed. But what we did have to fall back on was this simple formula. We didn't have to have a major brainstorm meeting. We didn't have to figure it out. We could just rely on what we knew would ensure us enough coverage. We followed the paint by numbers formula. Establish, move in, get the important stuff in the close-ups in that order, and we were able to move from shot to shot quickly without having to spend a lot of time thinking or debating about what we should do next. This is why it's a good idea to play around with this simple scene arc, to get really familiar with it, to get it ingrained in your creative mind to fall back on when things go wrong. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. What are your guys' horror stories about having to throw all your plans out the window? I would love to hear them, read them, so leave them in the comments below. Hit like, hit subscribe to keep getting content from this homegrown filmmaker. I'm Annie Pulling Sweat, and I'm Homegrown Filmmaker. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.